iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max video is on another level. Even though I have full frame professional cameras that can produce incredible looking footage, the new iPhone 15 Pro Max has been coming on more and more shoots with me and has been capturing some shots I could have never captured on my professional cameras. So now that I've got a load of experience shooting video on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, today I'm gonna be running you through the exact settings I use on my iPhone, exactly how I shoot the video, and then how I edit and color grade my footage from the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So without further ado, let's dive in. Let's start off with our camera settings. Let's dive into the settings app and then come all the way down to camera. Now into record video, and this is where you'll change a bulk of your settings. So I shoot everything in 4K 30 FPS, and this is so I get the option of either playing it back at real time and it's still looking fairly good and fairly true to life, or if I wanted to slow it down, I can slow it down to 80%, and I really like that look. But if you're shooting things and you only want them to play back in real time, 4K 24 FPS is gonna be your best friend. And if you wanna shoot things and slow them down to half speed, 4K 60 FPS is also your best friend. But I'm gonna leave this at 4K 30 FPS. I then come down here and make sure enhanced stabilization is turned on. I absolutely love stabilization on the iPhone. It's one of the reasons that I've been shooting so much video on it, because I can simply whack it out of my pocket, hold it with one hand, and I'm good. I'm good to go. I don't need to focus on, really smooth shots, have a little gimbal, nothing. I really like the stabilization on the iPhone. All right, so you also want to make sure HDR video is turned off, auto FPS is off, lock camera is also off, and then lock white balance is actually on. When you're color grading, you really don't want your white balance to change. So this makes sure as soon as you hit record video, that's it, the white balance is locked until you stop recording video and then start your new clip. Is it ideal? Not really. It would be great if you could just dial in your white balance automatically, but this is at least gonna stop the iPhone from changing the white balance as you move throughout your scene and while you're recording. Okay, so now these settings are out of the way, let's go back and then into record slow-mo. I don't really record slow-mo all that often, but if and when I do, I make sure I'm recording in 1080, 120 FPS. This is because one, I don't want 240 FPS, not really interested in it. And at 120 FPS, it's more than slow enough. So I'm happy with that. And then record cinematic, I've got it at 4K 30 FPS, but I never record in cinematic mode. So I'm gonna back out of that. Let's now dive into formats. I've got camera capture here at high efficiency, but that's not really gonna make a difference. We're then gonna scroll past all the photo stuff and into this little bottom section here, Apple ProRes and ProRes encoding. Make sure Apple ProRes is turned on. Of course, the file sizes are about to get giant, but this is to make sure that you're gonna be shooting the best video possible. And then dive into ProRes encoding, and you've got HDR, SDR, and log. Make sure it's set to log. This is gonna give a really flat profile to your image, but it's also gonna give you the most flexibility when it comes to color grading later on. Shooting in log was once reserved for just kind of high-end cameras, and now that high-end cameras are shooting in RAW, log is really starting to make its way down the chain, which is really good. And the fact that you can shoot log on an iPhone is crazy. So anyway, this is formats done. Okay, so we're back out into the main menu, and then we're gonna dive into preserve settings. Make sure everything here is turned on. This is just good housekeeping. Some of this stuff is for photos, some of it's for video, but I just make sure everything is turned on. That's because when I pull my phone out of my pocket, I don't wanna go through and have to change every single setting again to how it was when I just stopped filming before. This way, as soon as I pull my phone out of my pocket, it's good to go and it's set up exactly how I had it when I was last shooting. All right, let's dive back out of here, and then we're gonna come down to grid and level. Make sure these are turned on. This just gives you a little bit more control and you can kind of see better your composition in the future, if that makes sense. The level is pretty self-explanatory. If you're holding your phone like that, it's gonna show you that it's crooked, and the grid is just gonna give you a nice composition overlay, which is always handy. All right, in regards to camera settings, this is pretty much it. It's actually not that complicated. The really cool thing here is Apple takes care of everything for you. Your iPhone is gonna do all the heavy lifting. You've just gotta make sure that the base settings are set up as is. Now let's dive into actually shooting. All right, so as you can see here, this is our camera app. Now, just quickly, you only ever want to shoot video or photo for that matter with these lenses. You do not want to zoom in between. Let's say you were at 3.2x. This is just cropping in. There's no point. It looks horrible. So make sure you're only shooting with 1, 1, 0.5, and 5. Like I've got here, I've got the iPhone 15 Pro Max, so I do have the 5X, which is incredible, but even the 2X is purely just a zoom in, which is not ideal. So we're gonna leave this at 1 for now, and if you've just gone and changed all your camera settings, chances are things are looking a little bit different. So in the top right corner, as you can see, we're shooting in 4K 30 FPS. Perfect. In the top left corner, as you can see, we've got ProRes log with a line through it. Now, if we turn that on, things start to look a little bit different. And now our max recording time is only 15 minutes. That goes to show you how crazy large these files are. Okay, so turning ProRes log on, we've now got this really washed out look to our shot. And that's because we now get to put all that contrast and all that saturation back exactly how we want to, back when we're color grading. And don't worry, I'm gonna run you through exactly how to color grade your footage at the end of this video. Now, if you're coming from a traditional camera where you've shot log before, you'll know that you actually need to overexpose your footage. So if we wanted to do that, we could come into the little exposure meter up the top here, and then you might want to overexpose by between 1 or 2 stops. But for Apple log, you don't need to do that. It's kind of crazy, and your iPhone will take care of all the settings for you. So just leave it at flat. You don't need to overexpose your footage at all here. And then the last thing I want to run you through when you are shooting is to make sure your focus is locked. So for example, let's say we wanted to focus on this tripod leg here, and I was just about to take my shot. I could tap and hold on the screen, and that's gonna, you can see that little yellow box there, AE, AF lock, that's auto exposure and auto focus lock. So now if I come back behind here, this is all out of focus, and I could reveal like this, and then the tripod leg is in focus. And this is really important as well when you're pretty much shooting anything. You never want the camera to hunt for focus or lose focus and then come back in the middle of your shot while you're shooting. That's just gonna ruin your shot, and it's pretty much gonna make it unusable. And that's only the autofocus side of things. With the auto exposure, that's like what I said with the auto white balance. You wanna be able to make sure you can lock your white balance, and I guess this is the way to lock your exposure as well. This way you don't have any weird fluctuations if the camera thinks it's too bright or too dark. This way it's locked, so while you're shooting, you're good to go. So let's say, for example, we wanted to take this shot right here. We're just gonna pan around here. Very, very good content. As soon as I hit like this, I could then readjust the focus by tapping here. I could tap and hold again. There we go. The yellow box comes up, and now the tripod leg is out of focus and the table is in focus. And these are just a few little tips and tricks that you want to use when you're shooting ProRes log, especially when you're shooting it seriously. And to be honest with you, you could use these tips on any kind of video when you're shooting, but this is really important. All right, so now that that is all out of the way, there's one last thing I want to run you through. We're going to dive back into our lenses here. So as you can see, we've got the 0.5, the 1, and the 5X. And if you're shooting on the iPhone 15 Pro, instead of 5X, you'll have 3X. So right here is where you get to choose pretty much your focal length and field of view. And this is how I use my lenses. One, I never use the wide angle in dark situations. It never looks good, even if you're shooting in Apple ProRes log, believe me. So if it's dark, stick to that 1X. Even the 5X, whoop, okay, we don't want that. Let's go to 5X like this. Even the 5X is not ideal in low light. You're gonna get a lot of noise and it's not gonna look ideal. But when you're outside shooting and it's somewhat bright, the 5X can give you a really, really unique point of view. It's incredible. I'll put some 5X stuff on screen right now. This was also shot with action mode turned on, which just gives you an insane amount of stabilization. Really unique way to get a load of unique shots, which is great. The 1X obviously used for absolutely everything. This is also going to give you the most background blur and that out of focus blurry background goodness, which is beautiful. And then of course, we've got the wide angle here, which is great for those wide expansive shots to open up tight little areas. This is just perfect. And that's pretty much it. There actually isn't too much more to shooting with the iPhone. Everything else is taken care of for you, which makes shooting with this an absolute breeze. Okay, so now that the settings, lenses, and shooting is all kind of out of the way, let's dive into color grading this footage. So now we're here inside of Premiere Pro, and I'm gonna be honest with you, color grading iPhone log footage from scratch is actually quite a task. It's not as easy, in my opinion, as color grading log footage from a Canon camera or a Sony camera. So what I've done because of that is I've created 5 iPhone log conversion LUTs that you can go and download for $5 over on my website. The link is in the description. And this is gonna make your color grading process so much easier. And the first thing I'm gonna do is come over to Creative, hit Look, and then hit Custom. Now I've already got this opened up. These are my iPhone conversion LUTs. We're gonna hit Cube 2, well, iPhone conversion LUT 2, and then we're gonna hit Open. Now this has just taken our footage from looking like this to like this. And something really interesting with iPhone footage is you really can't play around too much with the temperature or tint. If you have a look here, if we just start playing around with this, it looks disgusting. So I'm gonna Command Z that to undo that. But as you can see, it was quite a cool, moody morning, but that's not really the vibe I want to give off. So now that our footage is more or less corrected, I'm gonna come into creative here, and I'm just going to start increasing the shadow tint to be a little bit warmer. And this is gonna take away just a little bit of that blue. So instead of changing the white balance in the basic tab, I'm just going to be adding warmth into the shadows here. And we're also gonna just do a little bit into the highlights, not too much. Just like that, something is like that is looking good. If I hit the little effects here, or since we've only changed things in the creative tab, I can just tick this right here. So now we've gone from this to this, pretty much like that, which is really cool. I'm then gonna open up curves. We're just gonna add a slight curve to this as I think it could be a little bit contrastier. And I want those highlights to be a little bit brighter than they are right now. The dynamic range is really, really good on the iPhone, but sometimes I like that blown out highlight look. So we might also come in here, increase the highlights just a little bit, kind of brightens up a few things as well. And then we're gonna come into our hue versus saturation stuff. We're gonna come here, so I'm just putting a little in and out point here, and then we're gonna drop the blues to kind of take those away from the shot. We're gonna come back into creative here. I think we can go a little bit warmer, not too much, just like that. And then we really wanna kill off a lot of that blue, especially in the highlights there. Maybe make this a little bit bigger and make this a little bit bigger. We don't wanna kill off too much of those greens though. And then we've gone from this to this, which I think is looking pretty cool. And in my opinion, if we play this back from the start, there's not too much movement. I don't know what this shot specifically was, but anyway, we are here. This was shot in 4K 30 as well, but it's crazy to think that a shot like this is coming out of the iPhone. Sure, there isn't a load of compression and there isn't a load of background blur, but that's fine to me. I actually don't mind. I really, really like the way that the iPhone log footage looks, and maybe we might just add a little bit of stylized spice to things by adding a slight vignette just like that. And now if we've gone from this to this in pretty much a handful of minutes, which is quite crazy. And like I said before, if you want to make sure that your workflow with iPhone log footage is like that, I would highly recommend to go and pick up my iPhone conversion LUTs. Believe me, they save you a load of time. All right, guys, and that is going to wrap up today's video. I hope you've been able to learn exactly how you can shoot the best looking video on your iPhone 15 Pro or Pro Max. And I bet by the end of this year, hopefully you'll be able to shoot log on nearly any iPhone that Apple's going to be releasing in the future. That's my bet. And of course, shooting log is all well and good, but you do have to be able to color grade it unless for some reason you just like the look of log. And you know what? If you do, fair play. It doesn't look all that bad. But anyway, guys, that's gonna wrap up today's video. If you have enjoyed, let me know in the comments down below. If you're new around here, a subscribe would mean the absolute world, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.